Napa Valley Life Church, welcome to another episode of NV Life at Home. Right now, it's November 3rd, Tuesday, but I'm filming this on November 2nd, Monday, and I want to talk about the election. And no, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or any of that. You guys have already decided that, and most likely you already have your ballots in. But right now, you might be watching TV, and you're watching whatever news channel you're watching, and you're seeing the results come in. And there's only two ways it could go. Either the person you voted for won, or the person that you voted for lost. And that means there's a lot of anxiety building up, maybe some anger, maybe some joy, maybe all of that pushed together. And so as we come together today, I just want to talk about the after effects of the election. If you go to Romans 13, that's the famous text where it's talking about God instituting all the governments. If it's the text that we go to, if the person who's in charge is doing something right or wrong, we go here and it tells us to obey the government. But I want to just look at really the first verse in this. In Romans 13, it says this: "Let everyone submit to the governing authority, since there is no authority except from God, and authorities that exist are instituted by God." Church, I want you to understand the sovereignty of God means that all of this is under control. And if your candidate won, God was in control of that. And if your candidate lost, God is in control of that. He's in full control here. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that we can stop, take a deep breath, and be calm and rest knowing that God's in control. We can trust him through this all because he is a good God that has proven to be faithful through it all. We know who he is. And so trust him, even if it's not your candidate. In Proverbs, if you go to 21:1, it says this: "The king's heart is like channel water in the Lord's hand. He directs it wherever he chooses." God's in control here. And so if you are filled with anxiety, if you're filled with fear of what's going on, don't worry. Take a step back and recognize that God's got all of this under control, no matter who's in office, no matter what government is ruling us. And it's great because we live in a place where we get to have input into our government. We get to vote, and God has blessed us through that. But even if all of it was taken away, he's still in control, and we can trust him and know that he's good. Let's end on Matthew 28, verses 16, or excuse me, we're going to start in verses 18 here and 19. And so the 11 disciples are around Jesus. They're getting a little bit nervous. They're starting to doubt. And Jesus came near in verse 18 and said to them, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth." First of all, the authority is God's, not ours. No matter who's in office, no matter how great our voting rights are, all authority is Jesus's, not ours. Verse 19, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age." Now here's the thing. We have no real control over what's going to happen tomorrow. That's God's control. He's going to put his person into office, whoever that might be. Whether we agree or disagree, that's his prerogative, that's his will, that's his sovereignty. But what we do see is that he has given us a command. The authority is his, but he's given us a command. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. Now here's your knee-jerk reaction, because look, I'm a voting American and I understand that. Is if your guy wins, you want to gloat. And you want to share and be joyous and all that stuff, and there is an appropriate action in this. But there's even more of an impulse to go to the person that voted for the other guy and go to him and say, "Look, we won, we're better than you." If you're on the other side and you lost, there's this impulse for you to get angry. And you look at the person that voted on the other side and saying, "Well, he's the evil one or she's the evil one, and I don't want to be near them." Here's the deal. We trust that God's in charge, that he's the authoritative person in charge here. And then we just look at what our job is. Do not let November 3rd or 4th or whenever this election gets figured out ruin your testimony and your chance to share the gospel. The neighbor who's next to you that's voting different than you, do not hate them if they win, and do not gloat to them if they lose. Use this opportunity to share the hope that is Jesus Christ. The hope that is greater than any king, any president, any governor, any mayor, anything. He has more authority than all of them put together. So trust that authority and do not ruin your testimony. Love the people around you, especially the ones that voted differently than you. Do not start strife, but instead go therefore and make disciples. That's our job as a church. So do not let November 3rd ruin your testimony on November 4th. We love you guys. No matter what happens, as a church, we're going to get through it together and know that God is in charge and worship him. We'll see you later.